My name is Cordelia Marsh, and I'm 78 years old. People say I look younger, but grief has a way of aging you from the inside out. I live alone now in a small rental cottage in Cedar Falls, Oregon, a town so quiet you can hear the pine trees whisper secrets at night. This wasn't supposed to be my life. I wasn't supposed to end up here, with secondhand furniture and a refrigerator that hums too loud. But let me tell you how I got here. Let me tell you about the day my children took everything from me. It started 6 months after my husband Warren died. Warren Marsh was a genius. Not the kind you read about in newspapers, but the kind who saw problems nobody else could solve. He spent 40 years building software systems for hospitals and banks. He didn't talk much about money, but I knew we were comfortable, very comfortable. We had the house in Lake Oswego with the wraparound porch. We had the cabin in Bend where Warren liked to fish. We had enough that I never worried about medical bills or groceries or whether I could afford to help the grandkids with college. Warren died on a Tuesday morning in March. Heart attack. He was watering his tomato plants, and then he just wasn't anymore. The funeral was beautiful. Our 3 children came, of course. Dalton, our oldest, flew in from Austin with his wife Cheryl. Belinda drove up from San Francisco with her husband Craig, and Roxanne, our youngest, came from Seattle with her fiancé Marcus. They all cried. They all hugged me. They all told me everything would be okay. I believed them. God help me, I believed them. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and old books. Mr. Garrett had been Warren's attorney for 20 years. He was a kind man with white hair and glasses that slipped down his nose. He gathered all of us in his conference room, me, Dalton, Belinda, and Roxanne. The reading of the will was supposed to be simple. Warren had always said he'd take care of everyone. What I didn't know was that Warren had gotten sick before he died. Not physically sick, mentally confused. The doctors later told me he'd been having small strokes for months. TAs, they called them. Transient ischemic attacks. Little moments where his brain just stopped working right. If you're watching this, please hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what happened next. And I need you here with me for this journey. In one of those confused moments, Warren had changed his will. Mr. Garrett read it out loud, and with every word my world crumbled. The house split 3 ways between the children. The cabin sold, proceeds divided. The investment accounts worth nearly $25 million divided equally among Dalton, Belinda, and Roxanne. And me? I got a small monthly stipend of $3,000 for living expenses, the will said, like I was some stranger, like I hadn't spent 52 years married to that man. I couldn't breathe in that conference room. The air felt thick, like trying to inhale underwater. I looked at my children's faces, searching for shock, for anger on my behalf, for someone to stand up and say this was wrong. Dalton's face was stone, cold and calculating. Belinda wouldn't meet my eyes. Roxanne, my baby, my sweet Roxanne, actually looked relieved. That's what broke me, the relief in her eyes, like she'd been waiting for this, like she'd already spent the money in her mind. There must be a mistake, I whispered. My voice sounded small, even to myself. Warren wouldn't. He wouldn't do this. Mr. Garrett cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable, like a man delivering news of a death. Mrs. Marsh, I advised your husband against these changes. I told him to wait, to think it over, but he was insistent. He signed this will 6 weeks before he passed. It's legal. It's binding. I turned to Dalton. He was 49 years old, successful, already wealthy from his own tech company. Tell him this is crazy, I said. Tell him we need to fix this. Dalton adjusted his tie. That's what I remember most. Him adjusting his tie like we were discussing a business deal. Mom, Dad must have had his reasons. Maybe he thought this was fair. Maybe he wanted us to have security. Security. The word tasted like poison. I'd given them life. I stayed up nights when they were sick. I packed 10,000 lunches and driven to 10,000 soccer games and helped with homework and paid for college and danced at their weddings. And now they were talking about their security. Not mine, theirs. Belinda finally spoke. Her voice was soft, apologetic, but firm. Mom, 3,000 a month is actually pretty generous. That's more than most seniors get. You can find a nice apartment somewhere. Maybe one of those senior communities. They have activities and everything. A senior community. I was 78, yes, but I wasn't dead. I wasn't ready to be shuffled off to some beige building where people waited to die while playing bingo on Thursdays. The meeting ended. Papers were signed. My children hugged me on their way out. They promised to call. They promised to help me find a place to live. They promised the transition would be smooth. Promises are just words, though. Words are just air, and air disappears the moment you stop listening. Within 2 weeks, the house sold. Dalton handled everything. He had power of attorney over the estate. I was allowed to take my personal belongings, my clothes, Warren's wedding ring, photo albums. Everything else went to estate sale or storage. I moved into this cottage on a gray morning in May. The landlord, a young woman named Kirsten, took pity on me. I could see it in her eyes, the way you look at a wounded bird. She gave me first month free. The cottage was tiny, 1 bedroom, a kitchen smaller than my old pantry, a living room that felt like a closet, but it was mine. Or at least, I could pretend it was. I spent my first night there on an air mattress, surrounded by cardboard boxes, crying so hard I thought my ribs would crack. The next morning I started unpacking. That's when I found it. The envelope. It was wedged inside one of Warren's old tackle boxes, the green metal one he'd had since before we were married. I almost missed it. The envelope was yellowed with age, sealed with tape that had turned brittle. On the front, in Warren's handwriting, for Cordelia, open if I can't protect you anymore. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were 3 things. First, a letter written in Warren's clear, steady hand, the handwriting from before the strokes, from when his mind was still sharp. Second, a small key. Third, a folded piece of paper with an address in Portland. I read the letter with tears blurring my vision. My dearest Cordelia, it began. If you're reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. I need you to know that I would never abandon you. I would never leave you with nothing. These past few months, my mind has been playing tricks on me. I forget things. I say things I don't mean. I'm scared that someone might take advantage of this, that someone might convince me to do something that would hurt you. So I'm writing this while I'm still me, while I still remember what matters most. Drop a like if your heart is breaking right now. Trust me, you need to see where this goes. The letter continued. I've set up a safety net, something nobody knows about, not the lawyers, not the kids, just me and you. Go to the address on this paper. Use the key. Inside is everything you need to know. I've protected you, my love. I've always protected you, and I always will, even after I'm gone. Love, Warren. P.S. Trust no one, not even family, especially not family. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and pressed it against my chest. Warren had known. Somehow, even in his confusion, he'd known what might happen. He'd tried to save me. The address led me to a small bank in downtown Portland, the kind of place that looked like it had been standing since the gold rush. Rose City Trust and Savings. The building was brick, old and solid, with windows that caught the morning light like amber. I walked in feeling like a spy, clutching the key in my sweaty palm. The woman at the counter was middle-aged, professional with kind eyes. "I need to access a safety deposit box," I told her. She asked for identification and the key. She checked her computer, frowned slightly, then nodded. "Box 447. Right this way, Mrs. Marsh." She led me down a narrow hallway to the vault. The walls were lined with small metal doors, each with a number. She used her key and my key together to open box 447. Then she stepped back. "Take your time," she said softly. When I was alone, I pulled out the metal box and set it on the small table. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely lift the lid. Inside were more documents: bank statements, stock certificates, property deeds, and another letter from Warren. This letter was longer, more detailed. Warren explained everything. He'd started noticing his memory problems a year before he died. It scared him. He went to doctors without telling anyone. They confirmed the mini strokes. They warned him his judgment might become impaired. So Warren did something brilliant. He created a separate trust, completely legal, completely hidden from the will. He'd been moving assets into this trust for months. Quietly, the trust held $10 million, and it was all mine. I sat in that tiny vault room and sobbed. Not sad tears this time. Angry tears. Grateful tears. Vindicated tears. Warren had loved me enough to protect me even from his own confusion. He loved me enough to hide money from our own children because he knew somewhere in his failing mind he knew that they might not do right by me. The trust documents were airtight. Mr. Garrett's name was nowhere on them. Warren had used a different attorney, a woman in Portland named Lucinda Hayes, and according to the paperwork, she'd been waiting to hear from me. I gathered everything carefully. Bank statements showing monthly deposits Warren had made, stock portfolios in my name only, a deed to a small property in Astoria, a beach house Warren bought decades ago before we even had kids. I'd forgotten it existed. He kept it under a business name. The trust made me the sole beneficiary upon his death. My children had no claim to it. None at all. This money was mine. Protected, hidden, safe. Lucinda Hayes's office was in a historic building near Pioneer Square. She was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and an air of competence that made me trust her immediately. When I walked in and gave her my name, she smiled. "Mrs. Marsh, I've been hoping you'd find your way to me. Please, sit down." She already had a file ready, thick with documents. She explained everything Warren had done, every legal step he'd taken to protect this money. "Your husband was very clear about his wishes," Lucinda said. "He knew his mind was deteriorating. He was terrified someone would manipulate him into changing his will. So he created this trust 6 months before he died, when he was still lucid enough to make it legally binding. He came to see me every week, just to make sure everything was secure. He talked about you constantly, about how you'd sacrificed everything for your family, about how you deserved better." I could barely speak. "He never told me." Lucinda nodded. "He was afraid if you knew you might tell the children. He didn't want to create conflict while he was alive. He wanted you to have peace. and after he was gone, he wanted you to have power. Subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. Power. That's exactly what this was. Not just money, power. The power to choose my own life, the power to say no, the power to leave or stay or help or refuse. For 6 months, I'd felt helpless, like a leaf blown by wind I couldn't control. Now I had roots again. Lucinda walked me through everything. The trust generated about $40,000 a month in investment income, automatically deposited into an account only I could access. The beach house in Astoria was fully paid off, worth about $800,000. I could sell it or keep it or live in it. My choice? I had choices again. That's what Warren had given me back. Lucinda also gave me advice. Your children don't need to know about this, she said carefully. Not right away. Not until you decide what you want to do. This is your safety net. Use it wisely. I thanked her. I signed papers making her my attorney, and then I walked out into the Portland sunshine, feeling like I'd been underwater for 6 months and had finally broken the surface. I could breathe again. I didn't tell my children about the trust. Not that week. Not that month. I let them think I was surviving on the $3,000 Warren's will provided. I stayed in the cottage. I kept living small, and I watched. Oh, how I watched. Dalton bought a yacht. He posted pictures on Facebook, him and Cheryl sipping champagne on a 50-foot boat docked in Galveston. The caption read, "Dad would have loved this, living the dream." My stomach turned. Your father's dream was to take me dancing every Friday night. His dream was growing tomatoes and reading mysteries on the porch. Not yachts, not champagne, not flaunting wealth while your mother ate canned soup. Belinda renovated her house. She sent me photos like I was supposed to be happy for her. Marble countertops, a wine cellar, a home theater. Thanks to Dad's generosity, she texted. We can finally live comfortably. Comfortably. She had no idea what that word meant anymore. Roxanne was quietest. She called once a month. Duty calls that lasted 10 minutes. How are you, Mom? Are you doing okay? Do you need anything? But her voice was distracted. When I mentioned feeling lonely, she'd say, have you tried joining a book club? Senior centers have great programs. None of them visited, not once in those 6 months. Holidays came and went. My birthday in July, 79 years old, I spent alone with a grocery store cupcake and one candle. I didn't even cry. I was past crying. I was in the observation phase now, learning, understanding. My children weren't evil. That's what made it worse. They weren't cruel or vindictive. They were simply indifferent. I'd become a box they'd checked. Mom's taken care of. $3,000 a month. She's fine. They slept well at night. But I didn't sleep well. I lay awake planning. The trust sat in the bank, growing. I added my small stipend to it each month. I didn't need it, and I wanted to see how long before anyone noticed I wasn't spending it. Nobody noticed. I was invisible to them now. A duty, an obligation. Not a person, not their mother, just an old woman they'd rather not think about. That invisibility became my superpower. They had no idea what I knew. They had no idea what I had. They thought they'd won. They were so very wrong. It was November when I finally made my move. Thanksgiving. Traditionally, we'd all gather at my house, back when I had a house. This year, Dalton offered to host in Austin. You can fly out, Mom, he said on the phone. We'll cover the ticket. How generous. I could fly to Texas to eat turkey in the house. My husband's money bought while they all pretended they hadn't betrayed me. I said yes. I bought the ticket with money from the trust. First class. Why not? And I packed something special in my carry-on. Copies of the trust documents. Copies of Warren's letter. Evidence. Truth. Dalton's house was obscene. 7 bedrooms, a pool, a 3-car garage. Cheryl greeted me at the door with a hug that felt hollow. Cordelia, so glad you could make it. She'd stopped calling me Mom years ago. Inside, Belinda and Craig were already there, along with Roxanne and Marcus. The grandkids, 4 in total, were running around screaming, hopped up on pre-dinner snacks. Everyone was dressed nicely. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was so proud of their new lives, their new things, their father's legacy funding their comfort. Dinner was catered. Prime rib, lobster, wine that cost more than my monthly rent. We sat at a table that could seat 12, and everyone talked about their lives. Dalton's business was expanding. Belinda was planning a trip to Europe. Roxanne and Marcus were buying a second home in Lake Tahoe. And me? Nobody asked about me. Not really, Cheryl said. How's the cottage, Cordelia? With that pitying tone that made my teeth ache. It's fine, I said. Small but sufficient. Well, at least you don't have to worry about yard work anymore. She laughed. Others laughed. I smiled. After dinner, after pie, after coffee, I asked them all to come into the living room. There's something I need to discuss with everyone, I said. My voice was calm, steady. They exchanged glances, worried glances. Probably thought I was going to ask for money or help or admit I couldn't afford the cottage anymore. They sat down. I remained standing, and I pulled out the documents. I found something after your father died, I began. Something he left specifically for me. Something none of you knew about. I handed each of them a copy of Warren's first letter, the one from the envelope. I watched their faces as they read. Dalton's jaw tightened. Belinda's eyes widened. Roxanne looked confused. When they finished, the room was silent. Dead silent. Mom, what is this? Dalton finally asked. His voice had an edge. I smiled. It's exactly what it looks like. Your father knew something was wrong with him. He knew his judgment was compromised, and he set up a separate trust to protect me. $10 million. In my name alone. Belinda's face went pale. 10 million? Where? How? A private trust. Different attorney. Your father was very careful, very thorough. I handed them the bank statements, the property deeds, the stock certificates, evidence of everything Warren had hidden away. This money never went through probate. It was never part of the will you all so eagerly divided. It's mine, all mine. Roxanne stood up. Mom, why didn't you tell us about this? Why didn't I tell you? My voice cracked, loud and sharp. Why would I tell you anything? You took everything from me. You watched your father's confused will strip me of my home, my security, my dignity, and you said nothing. You did nothing. You were relieved. Dalton stood too. Mom, that's not fair. We thought what? That I'd be fine? That $3,000 a month was generous? That I'd enjoy living in a cottage the size of your closet while you bought yachts and wine cellars and vacation homes? My hands were shaking. 60 years of being a good mother, a quiet mother, a patient mother, and I was finally screaming. You threw me away like garbage. You erased me. And now you want to know why I didn't tell you I wasn't actually drowning? Because watching you was educational. Watching you revealed exactly who you are. The room exploded. Dalton accused me of lying. Belinda cried. Roxanne said I was being unfair, that they'd all offered to help if I needed it. Help, as if I were a charity case instead of their mother. I let them yell. I let them cry, and when they were done, I said the words I'd been practicing for months. I'm rewriting my will. Everything I have, the trust, the beach house, all of it is going to charity when I die. The American Cancer Society, the Oregon Food Bank, animal shelters, organizations that actually help people. You'll get nothing, not a single dollar. Dalton threatened to sue me. That money should be part of Dad's estate. You're hiding assets. I laughed. Actually laughed. Lucinda had prepared me for this. Go ahead and sue Dalton. Take me to court. Spend your money on lawyers. They'll tell you exactly what my attorney already confirmed. This trust is legal, private, and untouchable. Your father created it with sound mind before his strokes worsened. Every document is dated, witnessed, notarized. You have no claim. He knew I was right. I could see it in his face. The defeat, the rage, the realization that his mother wasn't the helpless old woman he thought she was. Belinda tried a different approach. Tears, guilt. Mom, we're your children. We're family. How can you do this to us? I looked at her calmly. I did nothing to you. Your father left you $8 million each. You're all set for life. What I do with my money is my business. Just like what you did with your inheritance was yours. But we're your kids and I'm your mother. Yet that didn't matter when you let me become homeless. That didn't matter when you stopped calling. Family works both ways, Belinda. You can't show up now because there's more money and suddenly remember you have a mother. If this story is hitting you right in the heart, please share it. Someone you know needs to hear this. Roxanne was crying. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I should have fought for you. I should have said something. Her apology felt real. Raw. I softened just a little. Yes, Roxanne, you should have. You all should have. But you didn't. And now you know what it feels like to be on the outside. To realize that love isn't automatic, that respect has to be earned. Even from family. I gathered my documents. I'd said everything I needed to say. I'm leaving in the morning. I'm going to the beach house in Astoria, the one your father bought for us 40 years ago. I'm going to live there, alone, happily. And when I die, my money will go somewhere. It actually matters. I walked out of that house with my head high. Behind me, I heard Cheryl say, "This is insane. She's losing her mind." But I wasn't losing anything. I was finding myself again, finding the woman I'd been before I sacrificed everything for people who didn't appreciate sacrifice, finding my spine, my voice, my power. The flight home was peaceful. First class, champagne I didn't drink, a window seat where I watched clouds pass below like discarded dreams. I thought about Warren, about how he'd loved me enough to see the future, about how his final gift wasn't money, it was freedom. I moved into the Astoria beach house the following week. It was small but perfect, perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The sound of waves was constant, a heartbeat that reminded me I was still alive, still here, still mattered. I furnished it slowly, carefully, with things I loved. No more second-hand furniture, no more making do. I bought a comfortable couch, a bed with a view of the water, art that made me smile. I planted a garden. I got a dog, a golden retriever puppy I named Warren. My children have tried to reconcile slowly, carefully. Dalton calls occasionally, awkward conversations where he asks about my health and avoids mentioning money. Belinda sends cards. Roxanne visits sometimes, bringing her kids, trying to rebuild what was broken. I'm polite. I'm cordial. But I'm not the same mother they remember. That woman died in Mr. Garrett's conference room. The woman I am now is harder, wiser, less forgiving. I don't need their approval anymore. I don't need their love to feel whole. I've started volunteering. The local food bank, a women's shelter, places where people understand loss and rebuilding. I've made friends, real friends, not people who want something from me. Margaret, who lost her husband the same year I lost Warren. Tom, a retired teacher who makes me laugh. Yolanda, who survived cancer and teaches painting classes on Thursdays. We have coffee. We walk on the beach. We live. The trust money grows. I donate thousands every month to causes I believe in. Cancer research, hunger relief, scholarships for low-income students. Money that would have sat in my children's bank accounts is now saving lives, changing lives. That feels good. That feels right. Some people ask if I regret being so harsh with my kids. If I wish I'd been more forgiving, the answer is complicated. I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret teaching them that actions have consequences. But do I miss them? Yes. I miss the children they used to be, the little ones who needed me, the teenagers who thought I hung the moon. I don't miss the adults they became, the ones who saw me as an inconvenience. Maybe one day we'll truly reconcile. Maybe they'll understand. Maybe not. Either way, I'll be fine. I have the ocean. I have Warren the dog. I have my freedom. Warren, my husband, gave me one final gift. He reminded me that I was worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth more than being forgotten. That envelope didn't just contain money or documents. It contained proof that I mattered, that I was loved, that even when his mind was failing, his heart remembered what was important. Me, us, the life we built, that's worth more than $25 million. That's worth everything. And as I sit here on my porch, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold, I understand something profound. Sometimes losing everything is how you find out what you're truly worth. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, like, and share. Comment below and tell me, what would you have done in Cordelia's situation? Would you forgive your children? Your engagement means everything and helps me bring you more powerful stories like this one. Thank you for being here with me. Until next time. In the meantime, on the final screen, I'm leaving you with two of the channel's most beloved stories. I'm sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until now.